Hey guys, Izanagi here, and today I want to do a short but sweet review on Wuthering Waves 3.1 patch. Okay, so, well, look at the cute little penguins, look at how they hobble around, it's so adorable. Anyways, so, in my opinion, this patch was one of my favourite patches that I've done in WoW, period. I thought the storytelling was great, you know, the lore dump was great. The character herself, Aemeath, was just amazing. Probably one of the best character stories I played in this game. It was just all round amazing. So, is this penguin trying to start? I mean, what's going on here? You what, mate? This is the one time Carlotta is taller than someone. I mean, it's a penguin, but it still counts, right? Anyways, I digress. So, I've been playing WoW since 1.0. And if you've been playing the game since back then, you know the game had a really rocky launch. It was full of bugs, performance issues, etc, etc. Now, in my opinion, I think WoW has gotten better with each and every patch. It is improved in quality. Now, obviously, there are some patches that are better than others, and it can be inconsistent. But for the most part, I enjoy Wuthering Waves. For me, the main selling point for Wuthering Waves is always been kind of like, you know, the gameplay, just how fluid and great the gameplay is, and the open world exploration aspects. Those are the two main drawing points to WoW. And the story's kind of, you know, some patches, like I said, story's good. Some patches is kind of mid, but that's part of the course. But 3.1 is just so good. Oh, and it reminds me of, like, I used to play Honkai Star Rail, right? But I quit Honkai Star Rail just because the length of the patches and the way the story was presented, which just got really tedious, and I got to a point where I was forcing myself to play the game. Yeah, I mentioned Honkai Star Rail just because, you know, they're both gacha games, so I think it's like a fair comparison. I know one's turn-based and one's action, but it is what it is. But I think why Wuthering Waves works, because this the 3.1 patch is actually a bit longer than the average patch. Usually for WoW patches about 3-4 hours. This one was about 5 or 6. But the main difference is with Honkai Star Rail, you often have characters like, this is their animation, they cross their arms, they rub their chin like, and that's kind of like the extent of the animations. There's a lot of, like, you're reading text boxes and just characters standing there like lemons. Well, Wuwa, for example, Aemeath in particular, she feels like she is an alive anime character, right? She's smiling, grinning, winking, laughing, crying, feeling despair, anger. There's just such a range of emotions that the character displays in the 3.1 story. You can have a longer story patch, and people will sit down to play it, but you need to make it worth their time. You need to have a certain standard of quality, and Wuthering Waves knocked it out the park with that, in my opinion. Now, obviously, there's a caveat, right? Like I said, in terms of patches, Wuthering Waves is kind of like all over the place. You have some really good patches, and then you have some patches which are kind of meh, more on like the downside thing. Because generally, this is how the formula usually works for Wuthering Waves, right? It's that Rover, who is the main character, meets a new waifu. He hangs out with the new waifu. The new waifu ends up liking him, and then together with the new waifu, they beat the new boss in the new region, and then the story ends happily ever after, and then they move on to the next waifu for the next patch. It's kind of like being like an old school factory and you're working at a conveyor belt. You know, oh, I've made this thing and now I've got to move on to the next thing. It's very kind of like, you almost kind of expect, it's almost kind of like you know what to expect from like a WoW story patch. And I'll be honest with you, my expectations for 3.1 were kind of like, downy. I wasn't really expecting much. I was expecting the same old formula, but I was pleasantly surprised by the storytelling, the world building, and Aemeath as a character. Just great. But like I said, it's a double-edged sword in the sense, because now people will be like, looking at this patch, be like, whoa, this is the new golden standard Kuro games have to hit, right? People are going to be expecting every patch to be on this like kind of like level of writing, which I highly doubt it. You know what it feels like to me? It feels like, I mean, I'll show you. Was it Mornier? I think Mornier was the character that came out in the second half of 3.0. Now, I like Mornier, but her and Aemeath, I was going to say Amaranth then. Her and Aemeath, right, share a kind of similar story in terms of, you know, they knew Rover from the past and they idolize him and etc, etc. But, like, I felt like Mornier's story was just kind of, like, boring and not engaging. And Aemeath's story was just a better version of Mornier's story, if that makes any sense. Like, look, hey. Toxic masculinity aside, right? It is what it is. I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of teared up at, like, a certain segment in the Aemeath story. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit it. There's, obviously, I'm not going to give into specific spoilers, but there's certain, like, themes of Aemeath's character and her relation with Rover that really hit close to home. I'm not going to spoil what they are, but if you know, you know. And it's just, like... And just the way the story is told, in terms of the voice act. I played in JP. The voice acting in JP is so fucking... I have watched people play it in English. And the English dub, it isn't bad. I'm not going to lie, it's decent. But the Japanese, like, the VAs have just so much raw emotion. And the cutscenes and the expressions on the characters and how just Kuro, like, tells the story. It's just amazing. So, TLDR, because I don't want to ramble and make this video too long, is I pretty much love 3.1, and I'm looking forward to the second half of this patch. Hopefully, it's just as good. But other than that, I will see you guys later. If you want to leave a comment in the comment section, want to discuss anything in particular, feel free. Maybe a like, subscribe. That's always good too. But other than that, here you go. You can have a smug Carlotta drinking a tea. Very sophisticated and elegant. But other than that, guys, I will see you lot later. Peace out.